Welcome back to the Classical Guru. First opera. This had to be first. Anybody that knows me knew this one was going to be first. I met this opera, and yes, you're going to hear me. I talk about operas like they're people, but that's how they feel to me. And so I met this opera because when I started training classically, I had been singing in church and in country music on a television show for years. And that's all I wanted to do. But people in the business told me I did not have a country pipe. Turns out they were absolutely accurate. That did not make me feel any better. But anyway, so I go into my first voice teacher's studio, who had been a finalist with the Metropolitan Opera. He'd sung all over the Eastern Seaboard, very well known, sung with Igor Stravinsky. No idea who I was talking to. And the first words out of my mouth were, I won't sing opera. Don't try to make me sing opera because I hate opera. See, that's why I do this. And that's why I feel like I do about trying to bring opera to people. I had no earthly idea. I'm pulling it out of my butt. No idea. I can't believe I'm not. I think that's more the norm than, people just assume they don't like opera because they've never heard it. The truth is you've heard more opera than you realize. So, and I certainly had. This is one of those exceptions. About that same time, a movie came out called The Witches of Eastwick. Oh my God. Cher, Susan Sarandon, and Michelle Pfeiffer with Jack Nicholson. And there was a scene in there where I think it's bubbles or balls or something. But it's Luciano Pavarotti singing Nessun Dorma. Oh my God. It was the most glorious thing I'd ever heard in my life. So, of course, I go to my voice teacher. Can I sing this? No. Can I sing this? No. Why can't I sing this? Because you're not old enough. That doesn't make sense to me. Let me sing this. No. I have the notes. Doesn't matter. You can't sing it. Those are arguments that are happening right now in every voice teacher studio across the country, if the voice teacher is worth their salt. And so I didn't, but that didn't keep me from sneaking off to a practice room and trying to sing it. And I think every young tenor has tried to do this, just like every soprano that's sort of a coloratura has snuck off to try to do the Queen of the Night or some other big soprano aria. You get it. It's part of the growing up process. But I met this opera through that, and because of that, I found this book that they were getting rid of at the Anniston Public Library. I was born and raised in Anniston, Alabama. And they were getting rid of it. I still got it. It's over here on my shelf. And it told all the stories of operas. And I was fascinated. I was like, oh my God, they're so cool. Why didn't I know this? And of course, that allowed my mother to say her favorite phrase, I told you so. Kids. And so I started reading and I read about Turandot. So anyway, let's talk about Turandot. First, we got to talk about the pronunciation. All right. There's nowhere in Toscanini said it was Turandot. It's rumored that Puccini pronounced it Turandot. The woman that premiered the role, Turandot. It's not Turandot. It's not Turandot. It's Turandot. Let's just get that out of the way. And even in Italy, it's Turandot. They just say Turandot, and they'll look at you like. And I understand in the Italian language you would normally pronounce that, but that's just how they do it. I mean, this is like in English, there's an exception to everything, at least in American English, and certainly with Southern American English. Anyway, so that's kind of where we are with that. So that's Turandot. Let's get started. So Turandot is set in China. Let's back up. It's based on a fairy tale that has its origins in Persia, but is about a Russian princess, and it winds up being told about a Chinese princess. You're going to hear me say this a lot. It's opera. Go with it. It's fine. Anyway, so it's set in China, and it follows sort of Prince Kalaf and his arrival in Peking and falling in love with this woman who is referred to as the Ice Princess. We have problems. So when Kalaf arrives in Peking, and I have to say this, the chorus, even though as characters, and this is probably the most character-driven chorus that I can come up with in opera history. I mean, they're such a part of the plot. They really are. But they they work very much like a Greek chorus, and they comment on everything. And them and the other guys you're about to meet are annoying, at least to the tenor. But anyway, so he comes in, he finds out that the Prince of Persia is up to, he's going to try to go before the princess and win her as his bride. And there's been tons of these suitors. And even in some productions, you'll see around the set, if you don't answer the 3 riddles right, they amputate your head. You don't live long after that. Anyway, so they, and on some productions, you'll see heads on spikes all around the set. Not my favorite look, but it does need to give you this foreboding, because Puccini certainly gives you that in the music. And again, I'm going to tag a couple of recordings down in the below so you can go listen to this. I will always do that because it's so important that you hear this music, and you're gonna be surprised. You've heard some of this music, you've heard bits and pieces of it. I promise you have. So this chorus is telling this, bum 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 bum. It's basically we're in the land of Turandot, and it's foreboding and it's scary, but yet they don't like the fact that it's so bloody, but yet they will cry out for blood. I told you they were annoying. So, and sort of the history of this was Puccini, by the time he gets a hold of it, it had been set as a play by Gozzi. And we're going to talk about another Gozzi idea later this week. I don't know if it'll come out this week or next week or soon. We're going to do Prokofiev's Love for Three Oranges. And wonderful, wonderful music. So, fine. So anyway, so he finds his play. He loves this. And I'm looking at my notes, so just forgive me, because I don't want to leave some of this stuff out. And he met with the librettist Adami and Simoni, and he became very impatient. He wanted to do this, and he was pushing. And I think it's because later in the composition period, he knew he was dying. It was going to be his last opera, and as a matter of fact, he leaves it incomplete. We'll talk about that in a minute. And he went to Toscanini and begged Toscanini not to let his beloved Turandot die. So Toscanini took that very seriously. So in the writing process, around the end of 1924, I think, Puccini is diagnosed with throat cancer. Smoked all his life. What are you going to do? And so when he dies, the completion of the score, there's this big hubbub. And he took sketches by Puccini. Now, his first rendition, he took sketches by Puccini and added some of his own stuff in there. And Ricordi, the publisher, rejected that. So that wasn't going to fly. And so he goes back and does a second edition of this thing. And lo and behold, it's the one that we typically hear nowadays. There are other versions of this. Uh, Berio wrote one, I think, in the 80s or 90s, and um, the Alfano is typically the one that's written. Puccini had written everything first, second, and in the third act up until around the time of Liu's death. And sort of a side note, Puccini fell in love with every one of the sopranos that, or someone like a soprano. Not always the soprano, but he fell in love with someone that represented that soprano role for him. And so his muse for the opera, if you will. And I have often wondered two things: if the death of Liu hastened his death, and then I've always wondered, what would this be like if he had survived? I must tell you, I can only think of one soprano, and I've seen countless productions of this. I can only think of one soprano that truly, truly made me like Turandot, because she's an unlikable character. She really is. I mean, she's calling for all these men to die, and then she gives you this crappy excuse that, oh, one of her ancestors was raped. Horrible thing, not minimizing rape, nobody come for me. But one of her ancestors was raped, so she has to kill all these men because she can never be touched. She is an ice princess. None of that makes sense. But Christine Goerke, I saw her do it live at the Met. And she, in the three riddles in the second act, looks terrified by the time she gets to the second one. She genuinely looks human. And it was spellbinding. I've never seen another soprano do that. It just drew you in. And you saw a vulnerability that you have to wonder, if Puccini had lived, I think we would have seen more of that. The only reason I can say that is Puccini wrote 13 operas, and there's not one of them that you don't love the soprano role, even when she's being a naughty girl. I mean, one of my favorites is Manon Lescaut, and she's a thief and gets sent away for it. But you love her. Of course, granted, I saw Morella Freni do that one live, and who wouldn't? But anyway, so we're going to talk about famous and favorite singers along the way too. So just hang on. So anyway, Khalaf realizes all of this, and he's got his father, Timur, and Liu, their servant, with them. And his father is the king of... Timur is the king of Tartary. So Khalaf is the prince of Tartary. So he's beginning to become infatuated with... Well, first he talks about how cruel this woman is, and then she appears on the balcony and he falls in love with her. Because, yeah, that happens every day. Anyway, but before you... To get the right to do the riddles, you have to bang the gong. Sort of like the Gong Show in reverse. But anyway, okay. Anyway, so before he does this, Liu is begging him not to. Timur is begging him not to. And it's interesting because if you listen and actually read the translations of what Ping, Pang, and Pong, and they're sort of the governmental assistants that are around, their bureaucracy run amok. And they and the people of Peking tell him not to do it, and then they tell him, but blood, we want your blood, and go ahead and do it, and whatever. And then, so when he finally bangs the gong, and the chorus, the people, actually saying, "We're already digging your grave," and they're calling for his blood after they've sort of encouraged him to do it. It's bizarre. Again, I told you they were annoying, but the music is beautiful, so you know, it's a trade-off, I suppose. But anyway, so he bangs the gong, and so here we are. She appears, and the act one ends with Ping Pang and Pong Pong basically laughing at him. So act two shows up, and Ping Pang and Pong sing this absolutely gorgeous trio about where they are from in China, and that they want to go back when all of this mess is over. It's horrible, but they love where they're from, and yeah, it's their moment. If you look right here, that's a production of Turandot, Ping Pang and Pong, and my first voice teachers in that picture. Anyway, so the emperor appears, and he sits on his grand throne, and we're getting ready to do the riddles. Here we go. First riddle. What is born each night and dies at dawn? Speranza. Hope. Kalaf got the first one right. Turandot doesn't look nervous at all at this point. She's hanging in there. So her next one is, what flickers red and warm like a flame, but is not fire? Sunway. Blood. Blood. He gets the second one right. Now she looks nervous. Again, this is where I saw Gerke genuinely look afraid. I remember sort of crying because it was like, oh my God, I like her. I've never liked Turandot. She's that word I can't say. We're on YouTube. Okay, so then the last one, and it is, what is ice, which gives you fire, but your fire will freeze it more. I think I translated that fairly. In other words, what is it that you desire that you so much that but it's ice, and the more you desire it, you make it colder. Turandot. She's the answer to the third riddle, and he answers them right. Now she's in trouble, because she's supposed to be married to him. Trumpets sound, the people of Peking are excited. Ping Pang and Pong are like, yay, we can go home, this is gonna be good, yay, let's get out of here. And she basically, and they do this sort of duet little thing, and it's not the big duet. And she cries out and she asks him, will you take me by force? Because I'm not coming willingly. And he says, no, I won't. He said, so I'll make you a deal. There's always a deal in opera, always. Because you don't know my name. And she doesn't. Nobody does. Nobody but Timur and Liu know his name. You don't know my name, but if you tell me my name by morning, I'll die. This is the dumbest deal in all of operatic history. It's insane. It's stupid. But there you go. End of Act 2. So, Act 3 starts. And in the distance you hear, Così comanda Turandot. Everybody is commanded by Turandot. Nessun dorme. No one shall sleep tonight. And, which, of course, leads into Kalaf's big aria, which is really, I mean, that sucker's 2.5 minutes long. The thing about that aria is if the tenor doesn't get it absolutely right, there is no room for redemption. You got to get it right or you're dead. So there you go. And so he sings this, and then Ping Pang and Pong appear, and they offer the prince women and riches if he'll only give up Turandot, but he refuses. And so finally, the soldiers drag in Liu and Timur because they've been seen with him, and they figure they've got to know the name. And again, Turandot's basically said everybody else is going to die if I don't get this. So this is life and death for these people. So Liu realizes what's about to happen, and she openly declares, no one knows his name but me. I'm the only one. And she sets herself up knowing she's going to be tormented. And they bring her forward, and lo and behold, they start the tormenting process. She grabs a knife or a blade of some sort, typically, from one of the soldiers, and she kills herself. This is the real moment you should start seeing Turandot's heart melt, because she doesn't understand that kind of love, because Liu loves him so much that she would rather do this than see him hurt or see his father hurt. So she tells the princess in this gorgeous aria, tu che di I'm thinking, sei cinta. You are encircled by ice. And so Turandot sees this death, and Timur warns them. Timur's blind, so they have to tell him that she's dead, because he hadn't seen any of this. And Timur says the gods will be angered by Liu's death. And that bothers these people. So, Turandot and Kalaf sing, and he calls her Principessa di Morte, the Princess of Death. And he tries one more time to get Turandot to love him. And at first she sort of feels disgusted, but then he kisses her. Yes, he forces the kiss on her, and I understand that. I gotta edit that. I understand that. Let's not practice historic presentism. It's just part of the story. Go with it, please. He kisses her, and her heart begins to melt. And so basically, he tells her his name then. And so the next scene sort of comes in. It's a courtyard, and she's going before her father, and she goes before her father, and she says, "Ha ha! Now I know his name. His life is in her hands. He's just given her the final card." Il nome d'amore. His name is love. And so they live happily ever after and have 900 million children, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, that's the story of Turandot. Listen to the music below. It's absolutely stunning. It's Puccini's last. The orchestration is just heroic. It's gorgeous. So, all right. Later, next time. Thank you for listening to The Classical Guru. His opinion's the only one that matters.